Hello my friends! Today we're going to continue our understanding of the various countries and city-states that dot our world. The continent of Aldenard has seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. However, there are a handful of city-states existing within this land today that have shown that they not only have the power and resources to maintain their position in the world, but the wisdom to change when necessary. Each of them have shown the necessary ability to bend to the winds of time instead of breaking against it. Today, we'll start with one such nation. Today we're moving to the Isle of Vilbrand, off of Aldenard's west coast. Upon this island rests none other than the good ship Limsa Lominsa. The flag of Limsa Lominsa is none other than the obsidian ship with a red background. The black pirate ship is representative of their heritage and culture, but the crimson field of the flag is supposed to be the blood of crew and companions lost on the voyage to get to where the city-state is today. This civilization's most well-known exports are seafood, various metalworkings, and ships built on commission. However, their economy is primarily built on privateering, paid naval escorts, sea navigation, and various agricultural pursuits. Out of the pantheon of the 12, most people in Limsa Lominsa revere Limlane, the navigator. While there's no temples or priests dedicated to her worship, many sailors create small shrines to garner her favor. Culturally, the gross majority of the population is Seawolf Rogadin, but the Seeker of the Sun Makote and Plainsfolk Lalafell have a large presence here, with Midlander here and other races making up the remainder. The leader of Limsa Lominsa is called the Admiral, the current admiral being none other than Merlwib Blofhiswin. At face value, Limsa Lominsa looks like an island paradise built by pirates and free spirits. While not entirely wrong, it's a far cry from the whole truth. Now, let us discuss the history and origin of Limsa Lominsa so that we might better understand their political, social, and economic choices. Limsa Lominsa's history truly begins a little more than 700 years ago in the year 874 of the 6th Astral Era. You see, the Seawolf Rogadin that mostly make up Limsa Lominsa's population hailed from an island far north of Eorzea in the Northern Empty. This island was their ancestral home. However, at this time it was being ruled by a power-hungry tyrant. By all records I could find, the king at that time was, by definition, an evil man, and their ancestors attempted a coup to overthrow him. This revolution failed, and many executions were coming for the losers of this conflict. With no other choice, the rebels gave up fighting for their homeland and opted to sail far south to escape the king's wrath and tyranny. The flagship of this exodus was none other than the Galadian, a massive vessel that carried the bulk of the rebel forces away from their ancestral homeland. Their voyage then took an entire year at sea. Old Charlian had already become a superpower to the west, so they knew they couldn't make landfall near their territory. They also couldn't land in Dravania, since Ishgard was already a few hundred years into their war with the dragons of this region. They continued to sail southward, but in the year 875 of the 6th Astral Era, the Galadian made landfall on the southwest side of the island of Vilbrand. Upon the Galadian were two Elzen named Jean de Neuville and Guy Lathagran, and they were tasked with exploring the area, and came back with amazing findings. They discovered the land was extremely plentiful with a wide variety of both animal and plant life. With this realization, the Rogadin leader at the time, named Elilwain, declared this will be the site of their new home. With that, they steadily moved inland and made a small village named Lanosia, in honor of a respected lodesman that perished of scurvy 2 days before landing on the island. However, this new island paradise didn't last long. The local kobolds had taken notice of their arrival, and bloody conflict erupted between them. The kobolds butchered the villagers of Lenosha, declaring the volcano and the island it created as sacred to their race. However, even though these early settlers began to push back the beastmen, the people of Lenosha no longer felt safe in their village. They had only lived on the island for about 4 years and they were already under attack. The bulk of these people retreated back to the Gladian, which was abandoned on the southwest shoreline. It was at this point they realized that the kobolds avoided the shore and never dared to go out onto the water. The settlers used this to their advantage and began to take apart the Gladian. This noble vessel that had carried so many lives to their new home would now act as the foundation of their new capital. The pieces of the Gladian were used to make bridges and platforms between the stone spires and reefs that dotted the bay. Around the year 880 of the 6th Astral Era, the water-bound city-state we call Limsa Lominsa took its first breath. For the next 20 years, the city-state of Limsa Lominsa used what little resources they had to build up their strength. Eventually, Admiral Ililwain passed away at the age of 76 to disease, but he returned to the lifestream with pride, having guided innocent souls across the sea to their new home and saw the beginning of a nation. After his passing in the year 902, their will named his confidant, Tragir the Cold, as his successor. Tragir got to work strengthening Limsa Lominsa's military presence. He gathered together many like-minded people and formed 2 branches of Limsa's military, the Knights of the Barracuda, who would serve as the navy, and the Yellow Jackets, who would serve as their land forces. With newfound organization, the Knights of the Barracuda were able to push back and secure most of southern Lenosha from the kobolds. Limsa Lominsa had proven it was now too strong to be raided and pushed around anymore, and the kobolds had no choice but to consolidate most of their numbers into the northern half of the island. In the year 908, the Marabi dry docks was built in order to mass-produce new ships thanks to the lumber they've gained from the southern sections of the island. However, because of the lack of necessary resources on the southern section of Vilbrand and the sudden boom in seafaring vessels, piracy became rampant in the 910s and showed absolutely no signs of slowing down. For another 20 years, piracy became more and more commonplace as Limsa Lominsa had gained its reputation as a nation of pirates. In the 930s, famous pirate gangs and infamous flags began to appear, terrorizing the seas around Eorzea. Over the next decade, the various pirate factions began to war with each other, creating multiple blood feuds. By the 940s, order within Limsa Lominsa had all but disappeared. The title of admiral no longer had any power or respect, and Limsa became infamous for its shady and morally absent black market. Despite the almost constant bloodletting, Limsa's population continued to grow over the next couple decades. However, this time of madness and unchecked piracy came to an end in the year 963. At this time, a Rogadan captain named Agatzar Romerlson gained the title of admiral after the previous one was assassinated on a whim. After becoming the admiral's successor, he decided to do something with his position by bringing together the strongest and most infamous pirate crews in Limsa Lominsa to negotiate. It took a lot of yelling, threats, and possible fights, but Agatzar had done the unthinkable. He had gotten the most prominent pirate crews in Limsa to agree on something. Firstly, he put an end to the infighting between pirate crews. If you wanted to settle a score with someone, it would have to be away from Limsa Lominsa, and no one other than your own crew would help you. Second, he created a code of conduct that all pirates were expected to follow. The most prominent rules being, no crew would cheat another of its plunder, nor rob a fellow Lominsan, nor sell fellow men into slavery. His rules essentially outlawed scheming, stealing, and slavery overnight. Limsa Lominsa hadn't seen this level of order since they first arrived on the island almost 100 years ago. To enforce these new rules, the captains of various pirate crews offered some of their best sailors. These men and women would become known as the Upright Thieves. This guild of rogues became the shadowy enforcers of Lominsa's code. If you stole, they would steal from you. If you killed, they'd kill you. And if you dared to sell anyone into slavery, your body was never seen again. This brutal yet necessary form of peacekeeping still operates within the city to this day. Not even the shadiest bar or darkest alley is safe from the eyes of the Upright Thieves. Admiral Agatzar created the laws and its shady enforcers. He began to tax Limsa Lominsa like a proper nation, using its wealth and resources to give power back to the Knights of the Barracuda. He then consolidated the gross majority of Lominsa's power under the direct control of the Admiral, giving the city-state one voice. Next, Admiral Agatzar decided to repay the kobolds' initial brutality to his ancestors tenfold. He and the Barracudas aggressively took more and more land from the kobolds as they marched north. Knowing they couldn't win against Limsa's power anymore, the kobolds entered into peace talks with them. In the 970s, a ceasefire between the kobolds and Limsa Lominsa was agreed to, with Limsa agreeing not to take any more land from the kobolds in return for open trade. This new agreement actually worked out in favor for both parties, as the kobolds were left to mine in peace and the people of Limsa Lominsa learned enhanced smithing methods from them, making for stronger ships and construction. In his golden years, Admiral Agatzar would claim one final success. In the year 991, he declared that the position of admiral would no longer be decided by succession, and instead, a naval race called the Trident. The Trident would be held every 7 years to decide the current admiral. The winner of the race would prove themselves worthy of the position, by not only leading their crew through this gauntlet, but also outpacing their opponents. It was impossible for an incompetent leader to win the Trident, and for almost 600 years, this competition has created worthy leaders for Limsa Lominsa. Many things would happen in this city-state between the 1000th year of the 6th Astral Era to this very day. The town of Aleport would be founded in 1104. The vineyards of Wineport would be founded in 1122. Tension between the kobolds would erupt once again in the 1140s. The golden age of piracy was in the 1200s, with Mistbeard the Pirate King becoming infamous. The smithing guilds were founded in 1429. Conflict with the Sahagin became more aggressive in the early 1500s. The Culinarian Guild was founded in 1525 by Admiral Baldwinson. Shortly after, trade began to increase with other countries. The Upright Thieves made no small number of troublemakers disappear, becoming known as the Rogues Guild. And not once did Limsa Lominsa lose its brutish reputation. In fact, after one of the Trident races, new Admiral Gawain crucified one of his competitors on a rock. Despite having a moral code, Limsa Lominsa was still very much a pirate city. However, that brings us to the most recent times. In the year 1517, Limsa Lominsa entered into a new pact with the kobolds, declaring that to man would go the bounties of the sea, and to the kobolds would go the bounty of the land. However, it did not take long for that agreement to be encroached on and ruined by Limsa, leading to the summoning of Titan in the year 1562, which eventually led to the year 1577. Marking the end of the 6th Astral Era as the Elder Primal Bahamut went on a rampage, causing the 7th Umbral Calamity. The island of Vilbren was not spared, and Limsa Lominsa suffered just as much damage as every other city-state in Eorzea. That indeed brings us to the present day, completing our lesson on the combined and bloody history of this city-state. Having survived the 7th Umbral Calamity, the good ship Limsa Lominsa has the chance to sail onward through the 7th Astral Era. However, the Limsa of the 7th Astral Era is likely to be very different from its time in the 6th Astral Age. The reason for this is because of the current standing Admiral. Her life has been one challenge after another, and ever since she took control of the island of Vilbrand, she's tried to steer her people in a direction that favors the changing currents. We'll wrap up our lesson on Limsa for now, but soon we'll discuss the life and leadership of Admiral Merlueb Luhisfin, and how she's shaped Limsa Lominsa into the feared and respected oceanic culture it is today. Till then, stay safe, my friends, and raise a glass of ale for good old Limsa Lominsa. Hello everyone! Thanks for staying to the end of the lesson. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, subscribe and like this video to let me know I'm doing well. If there is a topic you'd want me to cover in the future, leave a comment about it and I'll see what I can do. Until next we meet, I'll be researching even more of our world's rich lore to share with you. Till then, stay safe, my friends.